The grainy, green-tinted footage from interview room 3 shows a young man in a gray sweatshirt, his head in his hands. His shoulders shake with what appears to be raw, unfiltered sobs. A detective slides a box of tissues across the table, his voice a low murmur of false comfort. The young man looks up, his face blotchy and wet, his eyes searching the detectives as he whispers, "I just want her to come home." This performance, captured at 10:14 p.m. on November 6th, was so convincing, so utterly compelling in its display of shattered grief, that it effectively closed down a critical avenue of a police investigation for 2 years. His parents, watching him from their living room on the nightly news, felt their hearts break anew for their son-in-law. They saw a man dying of worry, a victim just like their daughter. What they did not see, what no one saw until it was far too late, was the meticulous calculation behind every tear, the rehearsed cadence in every choked plea. The truth was not hiding in the woods or in a secret lie. It was broadcast on television, archived on a police server, playing in plain sight. This is the story of how a performance, and not a person, vanished without a trace for nearly 2 years. The disappearance of Kelsey Monroe would become a cold case, a file growing dusty on a shelf. Not because there were no clues, not because there were no suspects, but because the most critical piece of evidence, a recording of the primary suspect, was viewed through a lens of profound bias, of expected emotional truth. Everyone saw what they believed they should see, a grieving husband. By the end of this video, you will see what was actually there. You will understand the specific psychological tells, the linguistic traps, and the behavioral inconsistencies that were missed. This is not just a story of a crime. It is a masterclass in deception and a devastating lesson on how hard it is to see a monster when he's wearing the face of someone you love. You are watching behind the crime files. To understand the profundity of the deception, you must first understand the world it destroyed. The world before. Cedar Ridge, Illinois, was the definition of aspirational normalcy. 35 miles from the churning energy of Chicago, it was a town of excellent school districts, meticulously maintained parks, and quiet streets where the sound of lawnmowers on a Saturday morning passed for excitement. It was a place where people washed their cars in their driveways and nodded to neighbors, where the annual street fair was the social event of the season. Crime was something that happened elsewhere, on the news, in the dark corners of the city. In Cedar Ridge, doors were left unlocked. Kids played outside until the streetlights flickered on, and a sense of durable safety was woven into the very fabric of the community. In a beige and brick colonial on Sycamore Lane, Kelsey and David Monroe were the poster couple for this life. They had been together since their junior year at Cedar Ridge High, voted most likely to stay together in the yearbook. Their story was familiar, comfortable. David, a sales representative for a medical supply company, was handsome in an unassuming way, clean-cut, with a reliable smile. Kelsey, a beloved third-grade teacher at Cedar Ridge Elementary, was the radiant one. Her energy was infectious. She was the teacher who dressed up for book character day, who spent her own money on classroom supplies, who remembered every student's favorite color. Her parents, Linda and Ray Ferguson, lived just 4 blocks away. Linda, a retired librarian, and Ray, a former civil engineer, had welcomed David into their family long before the wedding. He was the son they'd never had. He helped Ray with grilling, listened to Linda's stories, remembered their anniversary. When he asked for Kelsey's hand, Ray had clapped him on the back, his eyes wet. "You're already family, son." The wedding photos that filled the Ferguson and Monroe homes showed a bliss that seemed genuine. Kelsey, beaming in lace. David, looking at her with what everyone interpreted as awe. They bought the house on Sycamore. They got a golden retriever named Barney. They talked about starting a family soon. From the outside, it was a picture of perfect, attainable happiness. But pictures are static. They don't show the slow creep of financial strain, the silent pressures that can form fissures in even the most idyllic foundation. David's job in medical sales was commission-based, and the market had tightened. Kelsey's teacher salary was steady but modest. Unbeknownst to Kelsey or her family, David had discovered online sports betting. What began as a casual diversion had, in the 18 months preceding November 5th, become a frantic, secretive sinkhole. He had drained their joint savings account, maxed out a credit card Kelsey didn't know about, and taken out a second lien on the house. The debt was circling $95,000. 6 months before she vanished, David, citing wise financial planning, had convinced Kelsey to increase her life insurance policy. She'd agreed, a simple checkbox in a stack of mundane adult paperwork. The beneficiary, David Monroe. This was the real world beneath the curated photo. A world of mounting desperation, of digital transactions and compounding interest, hidden behind the facade of the neat lawn and the happy couple walking the dog. The official timeline, as established by David Monroe and initially accepted by investigators, begins at approximately 7 p.m. David stated that he and Kelsey had a minor disagreement over monthly expenses after dinner. A typical marital spat, he would later say. Nothing serious. He said he decided to cool off by making a run to the Giant Eagle grocery store a 10-minute drive away to pick up coffee and toothpaste, items he would produce a receipt for. He kissed Kelsey on the forehead, he said. She was curled on the sofa grading papers, Barney at her feet. He left. The neighbor's security camera, facing the street, would later corroborate his car backing out of the driveway at 7:08 p.m. He returned, by his account, at approximately 8:20 p.m. He told police he walked into silence. The back kitchen door, which he swore he'd locked, was slightly ajar. A drinking glass lay shattered on the tile floor. Kelsey was not in the living room. Her grading was scattered on the coffee table. Her favorite purple pen rolled onto the floor. Her phone and her small leather purse sat on the kitchen counter. He called her name. No answer. He checked the house. Nothing. At 8:24 p.m., he called 911. The 911 audio is a clinical record of a man in crisis. His voice is high, breathless, punctuated by sharp inhalations. Operator. 911. What's your emergency? Asterisk David, my wife. She's gone. I think someone took her. The door is open. There's glass, asterisk. Operator. Sir. Your address? Asterisk David, 214 Sycamore Lane. Please, you have to come. Kelsey. Her name is Kelsey. Asterisk. His fear sounds authentic. The disjointed sentences, the rising panic. It fit the script of a man discovering a nightmare. Cedar Ridge Police Department officers arrived within 4 minutes. They found David pacing the driveway, clutching his own elbows, his face ashen. He led them inside, pointing with a trembling hand at the broken glass, the abandoned belongings. He was hyperverbal, repeating the sequence of events like a mantra. We had a small fight. I left. I came back. She was gone. The scene was processed as a potential abduction. Crime scene technicians documented the glass, dusted for prints on the door frame, took samples from the floor. A missing persons bulletin was issued. The machinery of a search for a stranger began to grind into motion. The first crack in David's story was discovered not by a detective's insight, but by a routine canvass. Officer Lena Cruz, going door to door the next morning, asked the Monroe's neighbor, Mr. Armitage, if he had seen or heard anything unusual. Just David sitting in his car for a long time, Mr. Armitage offered, almost as an afterthought. Officer Cruz pressed. What do you mean, a long time? Mr. Armitage explained that his Nest camera, which covered his own driveway and a sliver of the street, had captured David's Honda CR-V pulling into his driveway at 7:22 p.m., not 8:20 p.m. The timestamp was clear. The car's interior light was on. David was visible in the driver's seat, head back against the headrest, not moving. The car remained there, engine off, for exactly 58 minutes. At 8:20 p.m., David finally exited the vehicle and walked toward his house. 2 minutes later, he re-emerged, running, to make the 911 call from his front lawn. When Detective Susan Greer, the lead investigator, confronted David with this footage, his explanation was delivered with an air of wounded exasperation. I told you we'd had a fight. I was upset. I just sat there. I couldn't face going back in, having another argument. I needed to clear my head. When I finally went inside, That's when I found. He trailed off, his eyes welling up. Are you seriously asking me about this? My wife is gone. In the context of a possible abduction, the explanation was psychologically plausible. Shock, avoidance, emotional processing. It was a red flag, but one that could be explained by trauma. Detective Greer noted it in the file but moved on. The priority was finding Kelsey. The neighbor's footage was filed away. A curious anomaly, but not a case-breaking detail. Within 48 hours, with no sign of Kelsey and no leads, the case gained local media attention. David, through tears, agreed to do a televised plea. It was here that he delivered his Oscar-worthy performance. Sitting beside a framed photo of Kelsey smiling, under the harsh lights of a WPYR news studio, David was the epitome of devastated grace. He wore a simple blue button-down, his hair slightly disheveled. He looked directly into the camera, his voice breaking with precision. Kelsey, if you can hear this, we love you. We just want you home. Please, to whoever might have her. She's a teacher. She cares about everyone. Please, just let her go. He paused, swallowing hard, a single tear tracing a perfect path down his cheek. It was a shot scene across the Chicago area. It galvanized the community. It also solidified David's image as the heartbroken husband. Linda and Ray Ferguson watched, holding each other's hands, their grief for their daughter mingling with a powerful surge of compassion for David. The poor boy, Linda said, her own face streaked with tears. He's falling apart. He participated in every search, handing out bottled water to volunteers, his expression one of determined anguish. He gave multiple interviews, each time repeating the same core details with unwavering consistency. He never contradicted himself. He never got angry at the police for lack of progress. He was the model of a cooperative, grieving family member. He was, in effect, removing himself from the suspect pool by the sheer, visible force of his perceived grief. What David was enacting is what forensic psychologists term scripted grief. Real, profound grief is chaotic, unpredictable, and often physically debilitating. It does not follow a logical narrative or present well for cameras. Scripted grief, however, is a performance based on the performer's understanding of what grief should look like. Dr. Anya Volkova, a clinical and forensic psychologist who later consulted on the case, broke down the televised plea in a journal article on deceptive displays of bereavement. The subject, she wrote, displays what we call cued affect. The tears appear at the most rhetorically effective moments, when speaking directly to the missing person, when mentioning her noble profession. The crying is not intermittent or overwhelming. It is strategically deployed. Notice also the use of the present tense for her vocation, she is a teacher, but a subtle drift into the past tense for their relational bond, she cared about everyone. This linguistic slippage is common in guilty parties who are cognitively aware of the victim's death but are verbally constructing a reality where she is alive. Furthermore, his plea is entirely other-directed. We love you. Let her go. He centers himself as part of the grieving collective, not as the partner who had the last known interaction with her. This is a method of diffusion, of blending into a supportive background to avoid scrutiny. At the time, however, no one was conducting this analysis. They were witnessing what felt like authentic suffering. The performance was working. For weeks, then months, the investigation churned without direction. The forensic evidence from the house was frustratingly inconclusive. The broken glass had only David's and Kelsey's prints. The door handle yielded smudges. No unknown DNA, no signs of a violent struggle beyond the single glass. The digital forensic team found nothing suspicious on Kelsey's phone or computer. She had no secret life, no stalkers, no conflicts. Detectives looked hard at the registered sex offender living 3 miles away. He had an airtight alibi. He was at a mandated group therapy session with 12 other men and 2 facilitators. A reported sighting of a suspicious white van led nowhere. The theory of a random, opportunistic abduction began to fray. Without a body, without a motive, without a crime scene that clearly indicated violence, the case grew colder. David Monroe slowly resumed a semblance of life. He went back to work part-time. He attended grief counseling, which his in-laws encouraged. He was a frequent, somber presence at the Ferguson dinner table, a living reminder of their loss, a bond forged in shared sorrow. But the entire foundation of this story, the missing person, the grieving husband, the baffled police, was about to be violently overturned. And the key would not be a new witness or a jailhouse confession. It would be the mundane, bureaucratic act of highway maintenance. 23 months after Kelsey Monroe vanished, a state highway crew was performing routine drainage work along Interstate 57, near the exit for a rural town called Moni. A worker's backhoe, digging into a thicket-filled median, unearthed a matted bundle of fabric. Within it were human skeletal remains. The Will County Coroner's Office was called. The remains were transported. Dental records provided a swift and grim confirmation. Kelsey Monroe had been found. The discovery changed everything. A missing person case was now a homicide. The jurisdiction expanded, involving county sheriffs and state police resources. The original Cedar Ridge case file was blown open. A new, more meticulous forensic examination of the Monroe house was ordered. Technology had advanced in 2 years. The use of Blue Star, a chemical that reveals latent blood traces invisible to the naked eye, was deployed. In the living room, where Kelsey had reportedly been grading papers, technicians sprayed the area around and under the plush, cream-colored sofa. A faint, ghostly luminescence appeared not on the front of the sofa, but along its underside and on the carpet beneath it. Pattern of small, sprayed droplets. This was not a transfer stain from an injury elsewhere. This was impact spatter, consistent with a blow from a blunt object. The blood, when sampled, was Kelsey's. The scene of the crime was not the kitchen with its staged broken glass. It was the cozy living room. Kelsey had been attacked, likely while sitting on the sofa, and her body had then been moved. This reframed the entire night. This was not a stranger snatching a woman from her kitchen. This was a violent act that originated inside the home, in a room David claimed was empty when he returned. Armed with this physical evidence and the reanalyzed neighbor camera footage, detectives brought David Monroe back in for a formal interview. He was no longer a grieving husband providing clues. He was the prime suspect. This interview was recorded. The detectives, Greer and her partner, Detective Mark Vargas, employed a slow, deliberate strategy. They did not reveal the blood evidence immediately. They let David run through his well-rehearsed timeline once more. He was calm, almost weary, his grief now replaced by a faintly impatient cooperation. The critical exchange, as identified later, began when Detective Vargas subtly shifted the language. Detective Vargas. David, walk us through that hour in the car again. You're just sitting there. What's going through your mind? David. I've been over this. I was upset from the fight. I didn't want to go back in and start it up again. I was just gathering myself. Detective Vargas. Gathering yourself. Okay, so you're gathering yourself. During that time, are you worried about Kelsey? Inside the house. David blinked, a slight pause. I assumed she was still mad. Grading her papers. Detective Vargas. You didn't think to check on her? After an hour. David. It wasn't like that. We needed space. Here, Dr. Volkova's analysis points to the cognitive load of maintaining a lie. He is stuck in the narrative of the marital spat. He cannot deviate from it to express concern for her safety, because in his constructed reality, he knows she is already dead. Expressing worry would be illogical for his character in that moment. So he defaults to the relationship conflict, which feels like a safer, more consistent track. Then Detective Greer introduced the new reality. Detective Greer. David, we found Kelsey. His reaction was studied. A sharp intake of breath, eyes widening. Where? Is she? Detective Greer. We found her remains, David, near Moni. He dropped his head, covering his face. A low moan. It was a reprise of his old performance, but it was slower, less fluid. It was a reaction to news, not the unleashing of 2 years of pent-up hope and fear. Asterisk Detective Greer. The medical examiner determined she died from a blow to the head. In your living room. Asterisk. His head snapped up. Asterisk. What? No, that's not possible. Asterisk. Asterisk Detective Greer. We have forensic evidence placing her blood under the sofa. That's where she was hurt, David. Not the kitchen. Asterisk. This was the unmooring. His script had no lines for this. He fumbled, cycling through denials. Your tests are wrong. Then anger? Are you accusing me? Then a retreat back to sorrow. My poor Kelsey. But the calculated control from the first minutes was gone. He was now reacting, not performing. After David was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, the case entered the discovery phase of litigation. Linda and Ray Ferguson, supported by the victim advocate, requested to see the interrogation footage. They felt they owed it to Kelsey to understand, to hear what he had said. The prosecution, hoping to prepare them for trial, agreed. They watched it in a small, windowless conference room at the state's attorney's office, a box of tissues between them. They saw the man they had comforted for 2 years. They saw the calm facade at the start, the way his eyes tracked the detectives like a chess player. They saw the slight, almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw when the hour in the car was mentioned. They heard the flatness in his voice when he said, I assumed she was still mad, but it was a specific 20-second segment that broke the last thread of their misplaced loyalty. It was when Detective Greer, leaning forward, said quietly, That hour, David, that was the hour you needed, wasn't it? To make sure you had your story straight before you started the show. The camera was on David's face. For a fraction of a second, his expression went utterly blank. The practiced sadness, the wounded innocence, simply vanished. It was replaced by a flat, empty, almost analytical look. It was the look of a man whose software had momentarily glitched, revealing the cold hardware beneath. Then, as if a switch was flipped, the grief mask snapped back into place. He shook his head, whispering, I don't know what you're talking about. Ray Ferguson later said in a press conference, his voice gravelly with emotion, I saw it. For that 1 second, I didn't see the boy we loved. I saw a stranger. I saw a man who was empty. Linda saw it too. We looked at each other, and we didn't have to say a word. We'd been living with a ghost for 2 years. That void, that momentary absence of humanity, was the truth they had missed. It was the truth hidden in the very footage they had once watched parts of on the news, seeing only what they were meant to see. The full truth, as presented at trial, was a story of cold, economic calculation. The prosecution proved David's massive, hidden gambling debt. They showed the increased life insurance policy. They presented cell tower data that placed his phone during that hour in the car, not moving, consistent with sitting in his driveway. But most damningly, they used the neighbor's footage and the forensic evidence to reconstruct the real timeline. 7:08 p.m. David leaves on camera. 7:22 p.m. He returns on camera. This was not after an hour-long grocery trip. He had driven only a short distance, perhaps to a parking lot, to wait and establish the alibi of being gone. Between 7:22 and 7:30 p.m., he enters the house. The argument about money turns physical. He strikes Kelsey with a heavy, blunt object, never found, as she sat on the sofa. 7:30 p.m. to 8:20 p.m. This is the true hour. He cleans the immediate area, stages the broken glass in the kitchen, gathers Kelsey's body and belongings. He likely placed her in the trunk of his car during this time. He then re-enters his car at 7:22 p.m. on the neighbor's camera to begin his performance of sitting in shock. He was, in fact, waiting for a plausible amount of time to pass before initiating the 911 call. 8:20 p.m. He exits the car, goes inside to discover the scene, and calls 911. Later that night, under the cover of darkness, he drove to the isolated median on I-57 and disposed of the body. It was a plan that leveraged domestic normality as its greatest camouflage. The minor marital fight was a pre-planted motive witnesses would remember. The grocery receipt was the physical alibi. The tears were the emotional alibi. He hadn't just killed his wife. He had meticulously constructed a new reality in which he was the chief victim. David Monroe was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He continues to appeal, maintaining the performance of innocence to a smaller, captive audience. The consequences rippled far beyond the courtroom. For Linda and Ray Ferguson, there is no closure. They visit Kelsey's grave, but they also grapple with a secondary, corrosive grief. The betrayal by a man they called a son. Their trust in the world is fractured. They sold their house in Cedar Ridge and moved to a different state, a painful but necessary severance from a town full of ghosts. The Cedar Ridge community was left with a deep, philosophical unease. The monster was not an outsider. He was one of them. He coached a kids' soccer team. He volunteered at the food bank after Kelsey vanished. The case forced a reluctant acknowledgement that evil does not always announce itself with a snarl. Sometimes, it comes with a reassuring smile and a helping hand. For the Cedar Ridge Police Department, the case led to a formal internal review. One major policy change was implemented. In major crime investigations where family members are potential witnesses or secondary victims, key interview footage of primary suspects must be reviewed with them, with a trained advocate or psychologist present. The goal is not to contaminate memory, but to allow them to see what investigators see, to bypass the filter of relationship and perceived behavior. As Detective Greer stated in the review, "We assumed they saw what we saw. We were wrong. They saw their son-in-law. We saw a suspect. We needed to bridge that gap." This case forces us to examine the limits of perception. Do you believe David Monroe's actions were primarily driven by a psychological pathology that allowed him to completely separate emotion from action? Or was he a fundamentally greedy man for whom the life of his wife was simply a lower priority than financial survival? What specific moment in the interrogation footage, the blank stare, the linguistic slip, the controlled crying, do you think would be the most difficult to reconcile if the person on the screen was someone you loved? If stories that delve into the psychology behind real crimes, that examine how truth can hide in the open, interest you, subscribe to Behind the Crime Files. We break down the methods, the mistakes, and the moments that change everything. Turn on notifications so you never miss a file.